Which speaker to buy? Which speaker you recommend? The question I get asked most often is, which speaker system do you recommend? It's not an easy one to answer definitely, but I can offer general understanding of the different types of speakers available. While it may seem like there are countless speaker systems on the market, that's not entirely true. From a design and architecture perspective, there is actually a limited number of core concepts. These foundational designs are simply executed in a variety of enclosure styles and configurations. So, why do we need the best possible audio quality? There are many answers, but I will summarize it in one story, which I call Awakening a Reptile. Human civilization history is relatively short. What we call modern civilization is just a couple of centuries old. Even 1,000 years is a brief period of human history, where we have some evidences of terms like civilized, educated person. The rest of humanity history addresses basic needs and is driven by a reptile inside us, a primitive creature that makes you truly happy when touched. One shortcut to addressing our reptile is music. Our reptile is picky. Most of the time it is sleeping and wakes up only when music is right, the loudness is right, the quality is right. We can't wake up it with a background music sound level. Loudness should be between 80 and 90 decibels. For reference speech is 60 decibels. What happens when our reptile is awake and happy? Here I have an emotional story to explain. My language is limited at some point for figurative emotional expression, but I will try. Imagine typical situation. You are at a party. What is kind of boring? You are sitting on a table for 10. You know just few person around you. There is a pretty shy lady sitting nearby. She doesn't participate much in discussions. Typically, some participants speak a lot with confident tonality while others are listening. Then musicians come on stage. They play some song and couples start dancing. The dance floor is partly occupied, and then a miracle happens. The musicians start playing a particular song, and the shy lady behavior changes. She becomes focused and alert. To your surprise, she turns to you and says, "Let's go dance. I can't miss this song." This is a moment when her reptile is awakened. Public prejudice is not important. The reptile doesn't care about the public opinion. Of course you accept. If you can more or less keep up with her on dance floor and let her shine, this is a moment of true happiness of the shy lady. Her eyes sparkle, her cheeks flush, and her hair becoming wild. At the end of the party, when someone at home asks, "How was the party?" she will say it was one of the greatest she ever attended. This is a power of our internal reptile. It is making us truly happy. For me, I found that Roy Orbison's song California Blue is shortcut to my reptile. With the right music and proper loudness, when no one is watching, I can dance feeling unified with the universe and energy pours into me like a rain shower. 5 to 10 minutes I am recharged for the next couple of hours of intense brain work. This is a true reason why I have large 3-way speakers in 20 square meter room, renting streaming music services and invest in high quality audio. It is a shortcut to true moment of happiness. Don't tell me I have a bad music taste, or that only idiots can listen such type of music. For each of us, the right music is the one that satisfies our reptile, and reptile does not give a shit about other opinion. And to answer which speakers should I choose, the simple answer, you should address your reptile. Before we go further and have a fruitful discussion, I would like to agree with some bottom line. And the first, as a species, we have bad hearing. And here I found one internet source, and this was very expensive experiment. One audio blogger made a blind test with 7 studio mastering engineers. And I would like to draw your attention to age of this guy. No, it's hard to say, but I would say between 20 and 30 and closer to 20. And at that age, you have a perfect sensor level hearing. Yeah, you're hearing from 20 hertz to almost 20 kilohertz. That you can't say that this guy has a bad hearing. He's at the age of the perfect hearing. And all those participants also has approximately that age, between 20 and 30. And this is a big difference, because when you are getting at age of 40, your high frequencies hearing is degrading, and currently I'm getting older, and my current hearing level is 14 kilohertz. I don't hear frequency above 14 kilohertz, but this guy can. And they took a studio monitors, number of studio monitors, and did a blind tests. Engineers said that blind test, everything was measured correctly, and they use the same phono content, and they gave opinion which speaker is better. And they know that between those high names, there's a bad speaker. This S30 plus sub and S30, this is a bad speaker. I worked in that factory which produced those speakers during my teenager years. And you can see all of them has a perfect hearing, but a different brain processing, or DSP, inside of head, inside of the brain. And you can see variation, Yamaha. And I would say this is relatively consistent, even some of them get. Then the Genelec, famous name, absolutely perfect monitors. You can see how big is the difference. Higher number is a better quality, lower number is a lower quality. And you can see 7783387. Huge dispersion. Microlab 9764643. Huge difference. Adam, the same. Focals, the same. And you can see that variation. There's no even pattern. Yeah, there's no even pattern. And then you can then shitty speaker plus sub, better low frequencies, and you can see the shitty speaker 11, 7, 6, 7, 4, 5, 9. About Genelec, which definitely is by far better. And those are studio mastering guys. Its profession is master audio recordings. And you can see shitty one has a good value. And so on. It was a very long series of video, 12 videos altogether. They commented how they listen when they are tired, when they are fresh, and so on and so on. But this is a clear proof that our hearing has so huge variation. Our hearing is bad and heavily impacted for our brain activities. Don't trust two mid-age guys sitting between expensive equipment and discussing how they hear some crappy airiness or something else of one speaker to another one, or how they hear speaker wires. That's a total crap. Here is experiment, yeah, and the best or the top hearing guys, music mastering guys has so big variation. So, as a species, we have a bad hearing, which is compensated heavily by brain processing. We have DSP in the brain, which equalize our limitations, and that gives infinite space for marketing to play. Second, lack of the clear standards of stereo. When stereo music appears, there was a high cost for electronics, and also vinyl was capable to record only 2 tracks, and that made imperfection. So ideal stereo system should consist of 3 speakers. Then it will be easy, perfect, excellent, etc., etc. And since we are simulating central channel by phase difference between the speakers in recording, so this is how we determine directionality. It's lousy system, yeah. It's lousy system. In a moment when you have reflections, then we are pretty much in problems. It was fixed with the home cinema, and it was fixed even at the analog world, when in a 2-channel system we were able to somehow code at least 4 channels. It was a long time ago, I don't remember exactly, but technically speaking, it was not a problem to make a 3-speaker system for a stereo. But we should live with a legacy. All records are done, and we should keep up with this lousy system. Second, lack of standards is when you look at the speaker specifications, there is no strict limitation when you give it sensitivity. Is it in anachronic chamber or it's in room? And difference is about 6 decibels. When we give low frequency parameters, are they at 3 decibels, or they are at 6 decibels, or they are at 10 decibels? And so many crappy things that you can't buy speakers by specs. No way. Always you should listen. And second, anachronic chamber measurements versus real-life usage scenario. So we need some agreed standards, and this is why we are doing speaker measurements anachronically, not in a special room where there is no reflections or reflections are absorbed, and then we put in a real room and should do many things somehow to get a more or less precise sound. Today we have advanced technologies and can fix many things at a digital sound processing environment. But anyway, once you have passive crossover, you are locked to these anachronic measurements, and then you are listening in real life, and your perfection will go. And someone asked, could you recommend some speakers? And I can't. First, I have limited hands-on, but there is one guy, Erin's Audio Corner, which I recommend. He is measuring many speakers. But the tricky thing is, I was listening plenty of his podcasts, comparing different speakers, and I think he is living with so-called affiliate marketing, and really had a hands-on on many speakers. He also did measurements, and it has an excellent measurement lab. But honestly, what I got after listening many his video, that difference between different brands, similar category speakers, the typical expression is, and there is a little difference at that region, there is a little difference at low end when I think it is something, and practically I would say they are equal. Yeah, I come to conclusion that they are pretty much equal. I mean, when you make a choices, when you have a best price, when you have a best service, which is nearby your home where you can listen it, and practically you can't rely on the reviews. But this is Guru guy, I recommend him. Could you make a choice? I think no. I can't, with all my engineering background. I try to explain why. I also took one extreme example, and I recommend to listen that GBL Klipsch, Moffey and Wafferdale comparison, how he is doing that, and why I recommend it, because those recommendations will be so different from the real life scenario. I have a long-term friend who also enjoys some music, and he has a Tannoy Revolution signature, blah 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 blah, for many years, and then he decided to go for good speakers and did, I don't know, 3 years choosing the right ones, and then he bought Klipsch Heresy 4 and is desperately happy. His reptile is super happy. And if you look at Erin's measurements and what he's saying it's kind of a bit crappy, and then here is plus minus 3 decibels, and then you have a bit drop, and then you have a bit uneven something here, and the user is super happy. It's so good. And then we come that maybe only one parameter is not enough. So what does it mean if you have such kind of a little bit jumping characteristics anachronically? That means you have a little coloration, and that means your reptile doesn't care about little coloration, and from the room you get much higher coloration. Overall spectrum is balanced, and maybe some coloration. Also, second thing, when we're measuring anachronically, we could make speakers in different ways, or we can tune speakers in a different way, and we can tune it to be close to the wall, or you can tune it to be away from the wall. Majority of us has small listening rooms, about 20 square meters, including myself, and the only option is to put close to the wall or even in a corner. And where is the difference? When you do anachronic measurements, and you can tune that it has kind of such characteristic, great such characteristic. And what will happen when you put it on a wall, since those mid-range and tweeter, they have directionality from the baffle, but woofer, which has very long wavelengths, at 100 Hz it's about a 3 3 meters and more. So it is omnidirectional. You get the half of energy back, and you measure anachronically. You are losing half of energy, but when you put against the wall, you get it back. And when you have anachronically flat, then you will get kind of such a result. You will have accented bass. In the worst case scenario, it could be boomy. Yeah, but so this particular speaker is made for small rooms. Yeah, and it is and anachronic measurements will show kind of drop of the bass. But what happens when you put it in a room, or you put it in a corner? In a corner, you get not just a 6 decibels back, you can get even 12 decibels back. Yeah, even it will never be boomy. And once it's flat in a corner, so for a small room it fits better than anachronically flat. You can measure it perfect, but for a small room it's not good. Also, he measured that there is kind of some resonance, but listener doesn't hear it. There will be richer male or a chestier male voice. Maybe. But who cares? It's nice and perfect. The small coloration is okay. Here's the elder brother of Klipsch, and you can see the same pattern. When you put against the wall, you get the perfect. The bass will be absolutely linear, perfect, never boomy. And here is GBL. It's made different, also punchy mid bass. And if you put in a corner, they will be boomy. Yeah, they will be maybe boomy, maybe not. It depends where you place it. So there's a difference how to make. And actually, when you make your choice, there are 2 types of speakers. One speaker is anachronically designed for being away from wall. Another way being close to the wall. And for a small apartments, we need those which are close to the wall. No way. Yeah, no way. And here is comments, Erin's comments, punchy bass, but rolls off below 100 Hertz. But why he is not talking about the placement? It's important, and it is made like that. Very wonky mid-range due to the numerous resonances. Yes, this speaker has a compression driver for a mid-range, which has a lot of benefits, except one. It's not super linear. And here also missing a bit of upper mid-range, sharp sibilance. But what I would like to draw your attention, in a digital space, yeah, all those peaks are very easy to manage. And if you really want to, let's say, studio monitor, you can do it with digital parametric equalizer, also without a phase distortion. That means those things are easy to correct if you really need it. But in normal listening, we don't care. Reptile is happy, absolutely. Those few decibels in a room, not important. But what marketing will say, they will find a couple of such similar speakers, and one has a lower, like, not a dip, this is a bump. Others, and it will have a little bit more linearity, so it's better, but it is not important. For listener, it is absolutely not important. And then we need to define high quality speaker characteristics, and Paul Klipsch, for me, he is a real guru, defined them. And those are high efficiency, controlled directivity, wide dynamic range, and flat frequency response. And let's look. Here it is, and I will go to the website and read what this guy wrote about it. What does it mean? This is very important slide, or a very important website, which allow us to somehow fight with the crappy marketing, or resist to crappy marketing. And by Paul Klipsch, he defined 4 core principles of high quality sound, and all of them are important. And the first, high efficiency, low distortion. What he's saying, Perhaps the most important principle, Klipsch law. Efficiency is inverse proportional to distortion. This means that the more efficient speaker is, the less distortion it produces. Distortion is the introduction of unwanted sound that is not presented in the original recording. High efficiency. And what we see today, there are many speakers with efficiency of 82, 83, 87. And as I mentioned, in technical specifications, they're not specifying. Is it anachronic or it is in room? In room it's 6 dB higher, and they give you some figures. So high efficiency, important. High efficiency also means large speakers actually. Controller directivity. Klipsch technology accurately focuses sound to the desired location by reducing acoustic energy and amplifier power where sound is not needed or desired. This helps minimize room reflection, creates more lifelike soundstage in the listening area, and contributes to greater impact and lower distortion for movie and music playback. And here we should also answer how we are listening. Are we listening music alone or in a group? And in most cases we are listening alone when you're really listening music. This is difficult to achieve actually. You need additional technological tested principles how to make it. Controller directivity, second critical principle for a perfect speaker. Wide dynamic range. Wide dynamic range. The softest sounds are reproduced with a remarkable clarity and sensitivity, while the loudest sounds are delivered with a maximum lifelike impact without fatigue of distortion. Very difficult to achieve. You can't achieve with the small speakers. Only on a near field maybe. So again, you need larger speakers, higher efficiency speakers. No way to deal with the small speakers to achieve it. And the fourth one, flat frequency response. Music and movie soundtracks are reproduced objectively without bias for specific frequencies or tonal ranges. Recording sound is delivered as the artist intended, as accurate as possible, with spectral balance ensuring natural audio reproduction. And from all those four principles, those guys which review speakers are focusing only on the fourth one. And today it is so easy to achieve, especially when you have a digital domain for correction. It's very easy to achieve, and those are very difficult, and those cost some money. And when you have reviews, all reviews are here, and actually once those three, which are more important than the flat frequency response, what you can easily correct. When you're lacking those one, you have bad speakers, and you spend your money and you don't have speakers which are awakening your reptile, or speakers which are making you happy, or speakers which you can listen at a midnight with a low level, and speakers that you can listen at a party and are still great. Speakers which are not influenced that much with your non-treated room, like a controller directivity. So many things. And those are far more important than this one. And our marketing is silent here, very difficult to achieve it. From all my story, probably this is the only slide which I want you to remember when you make choices of your speaker. Yeah. This is the right slide. There is everything. Paul Klipsch did it. One more thing to consider when you are buying your speakers. Somewhere from year 2000, manufacturers start to produce tower type speakers. And you can see here's a typical tower type speaker. You have a lot of reinforcement bracelets here. And what marketing is saying, if you have a speaker without such amount of bracelets, they will say this is a very bad speaker, they have internal resonances. But it is not true, because there are several ways how you can solve it. Yes, if you have an optimum box, you need a lot of reinforcements, otherwise you will have resonances. But there is so-called golden ratio. Yeah, there's certain dimensions when your reflection doesn't have more than one dimension when you have standing waves. And it's called the golden ratio. There is special calculations. But let's look at the website how it is explained. And here is a text, golden ratio from Elliott Sound. There's a website. This is a guy who put together some basic things about the speakers, loudspeaker enclosure design. And there is one topic what everyone should read and understand, golden ratio. While making an enclosure with no parallel sides, it's possible, it's very difficult for home constructors and also for budget speaker manufacturers. The vast majority of speakers use conventional parallel sides, front and back, top and bottom. This can still produce very good box, but there is one thing that make it better. It is something known as the golden ratio, signified by Greek letter phi. There are many claims as to its inherent advantages, including aesthetics, but it doesn't have an important characteristic. No side is a multiple or submultiple of any other, so box using the golden ratio can't set up single frequency standing waves across more than 2 panels. And then is given a formula and examples. You can read it by yourself. But you can see this is a box kind of dimensional relationship, and you can make such a box and you don't need too much reinforcements. You can use thin material walls, etc., and still make incredibly good speaker. And in 70s, 80s and even 90s, this was a kind of basic pattern how you should make your speaker box. And now with a new fashion, new way, new look, marketing put it, we have an optimum box ratio. I call it monkey coffins, and I don't like them. Those slim, vertical, those are not optimum for sound reproduction. So, when you have a common background, here we have all speaker designs in one place with optimum ratio, and then we have variations of this one. Actually, what we are missing horn-loaded or compression driver-loaded speakers, but that's another category, and it's really complicated designs. Those are easy designs, and with the modern software, I can design such box in an hour. Even I'm not a box building or speaker building specialist. I just know the basic theory. So from the left, those are near field speakers and meant to be used at 1 meter listening distance, typically on a desktop. Those provide very good sound, and majority of music mastering in a studio, 90% of music mastering done using such type of speakers. They provide very good result or very precise reproduction, but only up to 1 meter. And typically it's a 6-inch woofer and 1-inch tweeter with one crossing point. Will they sound good at larger distance, at 2 meters? No, they sound as a total crap. Yeah, they sound as a total crap because not sufficient dynamic range. And remember, Klipsch said the dynamic range is important. They don't have the dynamic range. They need to work with a larger movement of cone. They create significantly more distortions. They so absolutely crap, not moving enough air, and those are crappy. What is the advantage of such type of speaker? They have one crossing point, and internal passive crossover is simple, and we are crossing high and components are small. Those two, when you want to listen it at a 2 meter distance, we are trying to raise woofer, but it jeopardizes mid-range, and those are compromises. Yes, you can buy. What is the benefit? Still one crossing point. And those are always compromises. It's very difficult to make a nice sounding full band speakers, and definitely you are missing low frequencies, and Reptile is so sensitive to low frequencies. One more thing. What do you think if you put those two speakers in a tall floor standard? Will it be better? Yeah, you are right. Nothing will be better. You have extra space, maybe some 2 hertz of low frequencies, but it will be crappy. Yeah, it will be crappy speakers, but it will be more expensive crappy speakers. And the same with those. What variations do we have with them? You can add additional speaker, additional crossing point, just to compensate lower frequencies or double when they roll off. Then you have so-called 2.5. Still crappy. What variations also you may have? For example, here is a port. It's a ported speaker. You can replace port with a passive membrane. Then you have a slim design, and this will be active speaker, and the same size 2 speakers will be additionally. You will look at, oh, so many speakers, it will be so good. No, it's just a port. Yeah, those passive membranes, those are a port. The same speaker, but different look. What is good, yeah, you can do this one gasket. Here you put a magnet, and those other ones you use the same gasket and put the same membrane, and save costs. Still crappy. Then you have a different architecture. You have 3 speakers, and this is covering, each of them are covering 3 octaves. Not a bad solution, but also you need a relatively large that speaker really to work and fill the room with the bass and go lower. Those are 3-way speakers, and minus is complexity of mid-range filter or mid-range crossover. We'll talk a little bit later. And then is a very good speaker, I would say. You have 6-inch for a mid-range and playing as low as 500 hertz or even 300 hertz, covering all male vocal. Then you have a large tweeter, typically 1.5-inch tweeter, which can play low up to 2 kilohertz, 2.4 kilohertz with the confidence and have some room. And then you have a woofer playing optimistically from 20 to about 300, 400 hertz. And the larger woofer has sufficient sensitivity. You can really move a lot of air and fill a room, and those speakers definitely can work for a 20 square meter room, for a 30 square meter room, and almost for a 50 square meter room. But 50 square meter so. Yeah, but majority, and this is a classical design. And Troils described each of those architectures separately. And let's go to his website and read what this guru guy is telling you about crossover choices. So here is his website, the same picture. And practically here we have all possible architectures or speaker architectures. Then we have variations about them, and you can see crossover frequencies where they are crossing. You remember that's the last one what we discussed, that's the big one, yeah, that's between 300 and 400. It's here crossing point, and here is about a 3 kilohertz. So, and then you have a tweeter. Each of them are covering three octaves, and this is a proven very good design. Let's look what is written. Example 1, traditional 3-way utilizing 6 to 8 inch woofer and 4 to 5 inch mid-range driver, working from around 360 Hz to 3-4 kilohertz, and 1-inch tweeter handling treble from around 3 kilohertz up to 20 kilohertz. Example 2, also 3-way speaker. Not too common approach. Classic using 3 to 4 inch driver from around 800 Hz to 3 to 4 kilohertz, covering whole stereo region. 3/4 to 1 inch tweeter up to 20 kilohertz. Some 20-40 years ago, that was a standard way of making bass and tweeter drivers. It definitely has its merits. See below. You can read more, but anyway, this is a typical standard. When you modify your some old speakers from 70s, 80s, then this is typical architecture. Example 3. This one, not much used, is used at all, and we will not pay attention because there are few speakers with such architecture, and it's not important. And then example 4 is a time all classic, 6-inch mid-bass and 1-inch dome, usually with a point of crossover around 2 to 3 kilohertz. It is obviously the most cost-effective way of getting all from the drivers. Simple crossover, if the drivers are performing well, simple cabinetry, no need for mid-driver housing, etc. And this is where you can get the best quality for your money. For your money. Is it wakening up your reptile? Why not? Why not? And I'm using such design for everyday work. When I'm recording, even in this recording, I'm listening on such type of speakers, what I have. But I never listen music with such speakers. Then you have plenty of variations. But here, those are describing all speaker basic architectures. And then you can add another woofer to compensate sensitivity. You can put a mid-range as a compression driver and then a horn, and then you need 2 or 3 woofers to match the sensitivity, etc., etc., etc. So then we have variations, but those are basic principles. And now one significant drawback of a 3-way speaker. Nevertheless, it's a best architecture, and here you can see a speaker which is meeting all Klipsch defined criteria. You can see the different type of woofer. It is small movement, large size, and it gives low distortion, perfect bass. And those maybe who don't know, but the optimum size of the low frequency driver is 18-inch, because then cone is light and motor is strong. If you go further, then cone becomes too heavy for a nice punchy bass. But 18-inch speaker you can't use at home because your box is too big, and then we have a compromises going down to 12-inch and 10-inch and even 8-inch, but all those are compromises. But for a home usage, maximum what we can make is about 12 inches. We still are able to do that. And what is the drawback? Complexity of mid-range crossover. It has a double number of components, and if you hide that part, you can see how simple is a woofer and how simple is a tweeter. And a 2-way system has such a simple crossover, and the crossover impact is low, and here crossover impact is high, and practically are not able to get very well sounding mid-range, or air sensitivity is high. And then I would say for 3-way speakers, the best architecture is an active speaker system when each of 3 channels are driven by separate amplifier. Or you have significant or very high requirements for a mid-range that speaker, that this big crossover, shitty crossover, has a minimum influence that still drives with high precision and a high sensitivity. I think first you should answer some personal questions and be honest answering following questions. How are you listening music? And I can give you some experience when I'm listening, really listening. It is for me, for my reptile. I want to listen alone. Because sometimes I'm listening that one song 10 times. I'm crazy. I'm listening 10 times one song, and somehow it's so well work for me or resonant with me. And when there are more people, it's background music. And to be truly honest, I want to listen music alone. It's my music. Nobody's saying the music is shitty. Nobody's saying that music is loud. Nobody's saying put another song here. Sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes 2 hours. All that time when I'm listening music, I want to be alone. It's my answer. Second question to answer, your speaker placement, realistic options. And often in a 20 square meter room, those are corners. And you accept it. Those are corners. And you choose speakers which will stay in the corners. Budget and lifespan. And also you should be desperately honest about things. For example, you will do some monetary trade-off. And you buy speakers and find out that those speakers are not awakening your reptile. This lost money. Correct approach would be that I will postpone the purchases. I will do some extra job, but then I buy one and forever. And then each time it is switching on. It's so good, so nice, so happy. I'm so happy to listen it. And the last thing, whom to trust? That's the most difficult question. Impossible to answer. When I really looked at the many reviews and magazines, and I'm not able to make a choice. No way, yeah, no way. Also, you should be aware about retail marketing. You know how retail marketing works. So there are many companies competing with each other, and they are discussing with speaker manufacturers what they distribute and try to minimize competition. And then you have something what you keep in a showroom, and you have only one in stock, and then you buy for the best negotiated price some 100 pieces and keep it as a push product. All bonuses for the sellers are targeting that 100 pieces stock product. Those sellers are trained in a way. If you come in and say, I want that speaker 371/D-1 with golden knobs, they will sell it and will not discuss it because you came ready. When you say, I want a great speakers for high quality listening, then you will get a push product. If you make a choices for them to choose, you will get a push product. So practically decision which speaker to take, you should decide before. One more thing to be aware. For example, you had a crappy speakers with a boomy bass placed in a corners. And our hearing is built in a way that, yes, we have a sensor level, our ears, and then we have a DSP. And when you have a boomy speakers put in a corner with excessive bass, your internal DSP is set somehow reduce impact of this bass and neutralize it. The same as eyes, when you put a blue sunglasses in 15 minutes, you get a white balance in place and you see colors correct. And in that case, you need about a week listening another speakers until really to reset that DSP. Sellers name it that you need to burn in your speakers. There's nothing about a burn in. You should reset your DSP. You were listening boomy speakers for a long time, and then you need a reset, and then you start to really have a neutral listening. Our ears are easy to impact. But whom to trust? I don't know. You should do fundamental research and really listen. No way to buy from the reviews. Many magazines can't say the speaker is shitty. Yeah, they can't. They will say pluses and minuses, and for that money it's good, and this measures good, and all modern speakers measures good. No, come on. One more thing about the placement, and I encourage you to go and listen to this guy. This guy is building studios, and he give really good evidences about how to place the speakers. And long story short, placing against the wall is the best, and it's easiest way to compensate or improve some mistakes what you have, or some reflections what you have in a room with a modern DSP. But listen, also guru guy, I will not spend time here. And when you get this message that you should place your speakers against the wall, and you know how they should be anachronically measured, you already somehow minimizing your choices significantly. Yeah, you have small room, you need a little bit different speakers. And some hints how can you get to the perfect sound, or shortcuts to perfect sound with a limited budget. Some of us has a limited budget, but one is old speaker upgrade. I have a video about it. If you replace mid-range and tweeter for old speakers and have a good woofer, you will be very high at quality. And you make them active, you will be so high in the quality. So converting to active speaker systems. And the last thing, compression driver systems. Klipsch Heritage is one of the example, and those are very complicated speakers. To make really compression driver and horn-loaded speakers to have a flat frequency response is difficult. But once you get it, yeah, it's an unbeatable system. Never be cheap. Actually, never be cheap. I think if you buy new, modern, no less than 3,000 for pairs, no less. And why I mention those compression driver systems, because when you look at YouTube and videos, those guys are crazy happy. Even they doesn't measure perfect. So there is something with that direction. And let's remember Paul Klipsch principles. Yeah, 4 core principles. High efficiency, low distortion, very, very, very good thing. Directivity, so minimum impact from the reflections and you have a perfect sound stage. Dynamic range, we can listen them at a low level, it still perform perfectly. And then you have a higher level and it's blast as a hell. And all the time it's a perfect. And flat frequency response, this is where you get reviews and many other things. Easiest to fix if it's not perfect. Those are very difficult and market is not talking about them. And focusing on the flat frequency response, and then they look the same. Yeah. Why reviews look the same? Easy to achieve. They look the same. And for me personal, it's not a recommendation, and I also not paid by the Klipsch. But in the future, if I want to buy one for me, since I already tested all possible versions of the perfect sound, I don't need. But I'm curious how they sound. I'm curious, really. And since I have a friend who has it, I will make interview with them and then he will explain at emotional level why he likes those speakers better than previous. It could be interesting experience. But here we have a compression driver for a mid-range. This is another story, it's a long story, but compression drivers are making sound differently than cone drivers. And if the cone driver's efficiency is about 1%, then here we have about 30%. Yeah, 30%, very effective way how to generate sound. And then it's complicated calculation of this horn, but if you do everything right, starting from compression driver and down to this acoustic impedance matching with environment, you get incredible sound propagation things. It's another story for an hour long how it is working. And then once it is so difficult to make, if you make a mistake, they sound, many bad things, they sound as a horn speaker, but if you make it right, it sounds as a perfect mid-range, absolutely perfect. Very good task. And currently I think GBL and Klipsch both are investing in that area, and then there are some professional companies also making compression drivers. I saw a compression driver with the 2 membrane for a tweeter and membrane for a mid-range in one compression driver magnet system. I see it as a future, because here you have a different principle how you generate sound. Today, still lousy, but for the future, maybe this is one direction really to work. I hope it was valuable. I can't recommend particular speaker, but I think the right speaker for you, or at least for me, is one which is awakening my reptile. And then you listen and try, find out one which is really awakening your reptile. And then you have plenty of energy and you can listen your music over and over and over again. This is what you need, awakening your reptile.